Okay, now in this little video we're just going to have a look at using constraints in your animation. Now I've just roughly modeled up a little sky fighter plane here, which I'm going to animate, have it fly around a little bit. It's a bit of a rough video, this one, but I just wanted to show you a couple of things. Now up in animation menu, there in the animation menu, you'll see a constraints item. And if I open that there, you can see that there are various constraints you can do. Now they're reasonably self-explanatory. Attachment constraint will attach an object. Path constraints will attach an object to a path, position, link, whatever. So what I'm going to do is just do a little quick animation of this sky plane thing, and we'll see how we can use constraints to do that. Okay, now I'm going to actually use a path constraint for the first part of this, and create a path for my flyer to fly along. So we'll just change to the top view and zoom out a little bit, and I'll just create a nice path for mine to follow. Now what I need to do is to go into create mode as usual, and I'll create a line. Just make sure that it's a smooth line, okay, and I've got Bezier corners. Now I can actually now just click around and create a path for my flyer to fly around, and I'll just close that there. Now it'll give me an option here to close the spline. I want to do that, so I'll click yes. Alright, okay, now what I'll do now is I'll just change back to my perspective view and go home, and then I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on here. Okay, so I've got my flyer there sitting next to the line. Now what I want to do is attach that to the line. So I'll go to animation, constraints, and I'll have a path constraint because I want to constrain the path of this flyer. So I'll click there, and actually I should have had the flyer selected first. I'll start again. Select the flyer, go into animation, constraints, path constraint. Now you'll notice here I've got a little dotted line appearing. Now I can actually attach that flyer to a path. So it's a good idea to actually click pretty close to where the flyer is, otherwise it gets problems. And I'll just click there, and you'll notice my flyer's kind of jumped a little bit, and all sorts of things are happening over on the right here, but basically that's that flyer. Now what I can do now is just play my animation, and you will see the flyer will zoom around the circuit, okay, which is really cool. Let's go back to the beginning there, and I'll actually slow that down a little bit so you can see what's going on a little bit better. So I'll make that travel at half speed, okay, and we'll try again. Okay, so you can see the flyer flying around. Now there's a couple of issues with that. Firstly, the flyer is attached to the line, but it's flying backwards for the second half of the animation. So there's a couple of settings that we can do to fix that. And if we go across to our settings panel here, we can see that there is a little follow button. So if I click follow and then turn that flyer around so it's facing in the right direction, it will now follow the line in a more natural way. So let's have a look at that. And you see it will actually now turn to fly around. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I'll just stop it there for the moment because I want to do something more with that flyer. So I'll click on the flyer again, and you'll notice that now that I've clicked follow, there's also a little bank, and that will cause the flyer to bank into the turns. There's a bank amount and a smoothness. Now I've deliberately stopped it in the corner because I want to be able to see how much it banks. Okay, that'll be cool. And you can also allow it to go upside down if you want to, and there's various other settings you can try. But this will now bank into those turns. So I'll just start that going, and you'll see it flattens out, banks into the turn, and you can adjust the banking a little bit to make it a little bit more realistic if you want to, but that's got my flyer going really nicely. Okay, now one of the issues that you might have on occasions is that these kind of animations are very tricky to light. And so if I zoom in, for instance, and try and do a few things with that and just do a quick render, you see that looks fine. But if I wanted to put some lighting or something on that flyer, I can do that. And sometimes they're tricky to light when you've got moving objects, but constraints also make it easier to do that sort of thing. So what I'll do is I'll pick a light, and I'll pick an Arnold light, and what I'll actually do, there's various things you can do, but the light type I'll pick is distant light because it's easy to work with. And I'll just place that above my plane there. Okay. Now I'll need to position that correctly, so I'll change to the settings there, and I'll look at the front view, and you can see it's totally the wrong position. So I'll just move that so it's above the plane, and the left view, and once again move that so it's in the correct position. I'll just try the front view again, see if I've moved it. Okay, so that's looking pretty good now. Go back to my perspective view, and you can see the light's now positioned above the plane. Now the cool thing there is that I can actually now attach that light to the plane. So what I'll do is I'll click on the light, and I'll go into constraints, and I'll link that light to the flyer, and now the light will actually follow the flyer as it goes around. So I can actually light that flyer very realistically as it moves through the animation. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool now with that light on it. Okay, so that's how we work with constraints. You can attach all sorts of objects. You can attach cameras to my flyer, for instance, so that you get a kind of a GoPro effect as the flyer flies around. You can do lots of things with constraints, so have a little play. I've actually created a little video, which I'll show you in class, of how I dressed this up a little bit and had my plane kind of emerging from out of behind the earth and zooming along. Okay, so that's that.